Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back to another episode of Declan's Autism Journey podcast. I'm really excited everyone's here. I have a super special guest, another Melillo mom that I met at the clinic back in July. Hi, Thais.
Hi. Hi,
I'm
everyone.
so I'm so excited you're here. And as you know, we were just talking before we started the recording is, the goal of this podcast is to help other moms and not feel alone as they're going through their journey. And we had the chance to meet at Dr. M's clinic in July. And I just think Melillo moms are like connected from hello, right? Like the minute like you're in the clinic and you make eye contact, it's like, oh, we're best friends. Like we've known each other
Yeah,
forever. And we're just on this path of like not giving up for our kids, right? And not settling for anything other than awesomeness, right? Like, and just fighting, fighting, fighting. And so I thought you would be an amazing guest to be on this podcast and just share your story. So I know to share your story is a lengthy process. So we're going to break it up into a couple parts. But if you want to start, just introduce yourself, talk about your daughter, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
perfect. Great. So my name is Thais. I'm from Brazil. I'm the mom of a 9-year-old beautiful girl, Elena. Elena was diagnosed with dyslexia last year when she was 8. But I've always known that something was a little off, right, with her.
Mhm.
So when she got diagnosed, we went through the professionals that were supposed to know about it, the experts, right? To get to help her because she was 8 years old. She could not read anything. She did not write, not anything, like not even a syllable. She had like a lot of headaches, and she would never want to do any like puzzles or coloring and things like that. So we got her to the best professionals, right?
Mhm.
And she stayed with them for 8 months, 8 months, and nothing helped. Nothing. After 8 months, she was still the the same way she started. And that was I'm just talking about the dyslexia part of it,
Right.
right? And I'm a psychologist, but I work with psychoanalysis. So that was not my area. I knew nothing about this. And I did not intend to learn about this because I thought, well, there are many people who know a lot. So let, let them take care of that. And I'll just take care of my part, right, in my office. But at the end of 8 months, when nothing helped, nothing, I thought that maybe it was time for me to get on board and start doing my own research. Because the thing is, and I think the other moms have gone through the same thing, is that at least here in Brazil, what we hear is that your daughter is dyslexic. She will always be dyslexic. So what we can do to help her is to manage symptoms, right? They say it
Yeah.
in other words, but that's what it is. So we're gonna get her somebody to read for her. We're gonna get somebody. She's gonna have more time to do to take her tests, or we're gonna make the letters, the prints larger. And I'm like, well, that's not good enough, you know.
I love
That's
it.
not
That's
gonna
not
work
good
for
enough.
me. Oh no, you can have like apps that she can like use, so the apps will read the material for her. I'm like, I was I was like terrified. I was like, no, that's not gonna work, you know. It's not gonna work for me. And there were other issues there, right? She has a diagnosis of ADHD also,
Mhm.
which I did not agree 100% when she got that diagnosis, but now I understand what was going on. And nobody has ever diagnosed her with dyspraxia here, right? But the things were there, like the issues were there. They have always been there. So when I started thinking that maybe I would have to learn about that because in the feelings that come with those meetings with those professionals is just so hard to describe because it's despair and you feel like you're drowning and nobody's there to rescue you and I don't know. it just felt like the room would get darker, and I was being engulfed with this, just like despair and no hope. And what am I going to do? And nobody's listening to me because I would
Yeah.
say, this is not good enough. I want better. And whatever they said about this dyslexia and what they could do to help her, nothing explained what was really happening. I didn't understand what was happening. I, I had no idea what was happening
Yeah,
in her brain.
absolutely. Yep.
And that's when I decided that well, I have to learn everything about the brain. I have to learn everything about the brain, right? So if there's no answer for what, there's nothing better that they can do for her. I'm going to learn everything about the brain, and I'm going to find out. I'm going to figure it out something that is
Yep.
better. So I started doing my research. And I think because I was doing a lot of research and I read a lot of different theories, a lot of many things, and nothing really made any sense. It just didn't explain. It didn't convince me. Um, it just they just described the symptoms and things like that. They
Yeah.
didn't really explain what was going on in a logical manner.
Right.
So because I was doing all the research, I think Instagram sent me a post, right, about this guy in Australia. This is so random. This guy in Australia, he's a chiropractor, and he was just doing some posts on primitive reflexes. So the Instagram sent me that. I saw that. I was like, oh, that's different. Huh? Didn't pay attention to that. Next day, I got another post from the same professional. I was like, well, let me see this. What is this? So I was just like, oh, primitive reflexes. He was explaining, like, wow, that's super interesting. So I talked to the professionals that were like taking care of Elena, and they're like, huh, oh my God, no, there's so much BS in the internet. There's nothing. That's okay. No, you have to give her some Ritalin and just
Yeah.
get somebody to breathe for her. I was like, nah. So so I got her, and I was like, come here, Elena. So I learned super quickly how to test for the primitive reflexes. And then I tested her. And when I tested her, I almost fainted. I was like, oh my God. I knew right at that moment that we got something. I was
Yeah.
like, and it was such a special moment because like we have something here.
That's amazing.
We have something here. I knew nothing about the Melillo method, Dr. Melillo, and all his amazing work. I just first contact with primitive reflexes, and she tested positive for all primitive reflexes, level 4, like if she was a baby,
Hmm.
like a newborn.
Yeah, that was Declan too when we started.
Did you start? Did you guys start straight with Dr. Melillo, or did you test him at home before, like getting?
No, so I happened to hear Dr. M on a podcast. I was on a plane, like I was flying home. I was on a business trip, and I was listening to this podcast, and he was on it, and he used the words root cause, and I was like,
Okay.
all right, he's got me. This man has me at root
Yes,
cause,
the
right?
first
Like
one to say that, right?
no one says root cause, and I had been everywhere with Declan, seen every specialist, and no one had said the words root cause. And so I'm listening to this and I'm just like sobbing on this airplane, like, oh my God, I just felt like, we need to see him. And so as soon as I landed, I booked like a Zoom with him. And we then, I'm in the States, so it's easier to get to him than certainly you being out of the country. But yeah, I think booked our Zoom in February, and by April we were there for our first intensive. But I didn't even know. Now I had started, like Dr. M had me start to do like the primitive reflexes and stuff, but I really didn't still understand even what I was doing. I just was doing it because he told me to. But it wasn't until we kind of went for that first intensive that I was like, okay, this is all it's kind of like coming together.
Right. But you, even if you didn't know anything about that, you had that feeling, right? When you heard him speak and he said the root cause, and
Yeah.
you didn't even know where that was gonna take you, but you had that same feeling that I had when I tested her primitive, like this is it.
Yeah, I need
It's
to meet
just
him.
so,
He needs
yeah.
to see Declan.
we got something here. It's different. This
Yeah.
is it. And that's what happened to me. And then, but the thing is that I didn't realize that Dr. Melillo was a real person that I could talk to
Right.
uh, for a long time. So I was just like listening to. So I went on the Instagram and I got to know that that chiropractor was doing the Melillo method. So I just
Mhm.
went and did the research. What is the Melillo method? And I watched all his interviews. I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. And 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 then I started studying, getting informed, right? And then everything that I was learning, I was applying at home with Elena, with my daughter. And 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 for the first time, everything that I had noticed in Elena since she was born, I had an answer for that. I had an explanation for that, and it all made sense because I'm not just talking about the dyslexia, not the dyslexia or not being able to focus or pay attention. There were other things going on there
Mhm.
that nobody ever paid attention to, even though I talked to doctors about that. For example, when she was born, it was really hard breastfeeding her. She wouldn't latch
Yeah.
on and she would fall asleep, right? It was very hard keeping her up. She had speech delay, like a lot. She had
Mhm.
severe speech delay. She was very uncoordinated. I could tell like she didn't do things the way other kids did. Like she was 8 years old. She couldn't get dressed by herself.
Right.
She couldn't even put on an underwear by herself. Like this is not normal. Like the way she washed her hands and the way she handled um, silverware, and she couldn't get mentally organized to do things, and she couldn't
Yeah.
get physically organized to do things. Let's say get dressed. She wouldn't be able to, even if I was right next to her telling Elena, go get your pants, go get your shirt, put it on. She would not be able to do it at all. She had extremely high anxiety and she was super afraid of everything. Like she
Oh.
would not be in her house. She wouldn't be alone in the rooms. Someone had to be with her all the time because she was so afraid of something bad would happen. She was so scared, and she was in therapy. She had been in therapy for 2 years to make that better, and it was not helping. Okay, nothing was helping, and her anxiety got to such a high level that she couldn't even fall asleep, even in my bed. She would be like so scared. So there were many, many things going on that and she got migraines every single day. She had
Ugh.
such bad migraines that I had to pick her up early from school every day. And nobody else, like, she would get fatigued super easily. She wouldn't be able to, like, she wasn't able to run around and play with her friends because she was not coordinated enough to do that, and she would get fatigued. And there's so many things that were going on with her that I've always talked to the professionals, and nobody ever even, they didn't even acknowledge what I was saying. They're like, oh, hmm. They would say nothing.
It's the
And
worst.
then it is.
It's the worst. It's the worst feeling. And you are so, and I've said this a lot on this podcast because that has 100% been my experience with experts, we'll call them. I mean, it makes me crazy to think back to all of the time, money, hope, resources we've invested in people that actually knew nothing and just either disregarded us or really didn't even want to treat. Like I talked in one podcast episode about like an ER doctor, like moonwalking out the door because Declan was scared. He was crying and it was just easier to not treat him. And, that is just, unfortunately, that has been our norm until meeting Dr. M. And now, even when I bring on new providers, like I am super pointed in my questions. Like you don't get on Declan's bus unless you go through me. Like I know exactly the questions I'm asking. You have to prove yourself to me that you're going to be a valued member of his team and then maybe you'll have a seat on his bus. But like, and it's just because I'm so jaded and I cannot give that hope to freely anymore. Like I just can't do it. It's just
Right,
self-preservation.
right. And I don't think they mean that. It's just that they don't know. They don't have access to this information, right? And everybody should have access to, everybody who works with children should have access to this information. So, what I'm talking about is like understanding the how the brain develops, right? And how it all starts and where the problem starts and how and when to intervene and how things build up to
Yeah.
what we have today. They don't have that knowledge because that's something new, right?
Right.
Hopefully they'll get that knowledge. So when I started studying and I started telling all the professionals about that, they were like, oh, you're crazy. No, don't even try that. Nobody were like, yeah, go for it. Let me learn that too. That sounds so interesting. So I was alone in an entire country, when nobody had ever heard about Dr. Melillo. But I'm
Right.
like, well, I don't care. I'm gonna go for this.
I
And I
don't care.
started
I love
doing
it.
whatever and then I started doing whatever. I do nothing, right? That's what I want. I'd like moms to really listen to this because I knew nothing. I knew nothing. The little bit of information that I got from a podcast, from his interview, I would apply. And I did other courses also. He's talking about primitive reflexes. So I went and I did other courses about primitive reflexes. And every bit of information that I got from the studies, from the internet, so easy, everybody can have access to that.
Yeah.
And I started applying with Elena. I saw changes right away. I'm saying within 2 weeks, I started seeing changes. I'm not
Wow.
kidding. Within 2 weeks, her anxiety started to go down and she started behaving differently. And we started this in December last year, close to Christmas. And then we went on Christmas break. For us, it's a long break because it's summer. And then I did that the entire break. So she was not doing any other therapy. She was just doing this,
Okay.
right? Okay. So she wasn't doing any other therapy. We just did whatever I was learning. So I had no fancy equipment. I didn't have the entire knowledge of information. I didn't have the entire program to apply to her. So just bits of the program that I was like learning with no equipment whatsoever. And I saw changes right away. Right away. So we did that during the break for like a month. And when we came back from the break, she she was reading. She wasn't reading like a regular person, right? But she started reading. She didn't have any more migraines. She was sleeping at night. Her anxiety went down. And
That's
so
huge.
many, it's insane. It's like it's crazy, right? So then I started like doing more and more. But I started learning and I started doing more, and we did it for 6 months. She started gaining muscle tone. She didn't have her muscles were so floppy. So she
Yeah.
started getting strong. She wasn't so fatigued. The reading was progressing, and she started like being able to dress up by herself,
And she's
play with
very
her.
fashionable. She's very
Yeah.
fashionable.
She's a right brain girl, totally right brain. Her diagnosis is very easy. But I saw progress in every area of her life, everything that concerns me ever since she was a little girl,
Yeah.
right? And like little, like a baby. So then I realized, like, wait a minute, well, I need to get the laser. And I was like, wait a minute, I can actually schedule an appointment with Dr. Melillo because for me, he was like a myth, right? He
Right.
was not
Right.
a real
The mythical
person.
figure. Yeah.
So that's when we decided to go to New York because I think what I accomplished so much doing the program with her at home with little resources, right? Just the knowledge, just the concept, whatever Dr. Melillo explains in his book or in the podcast or interviews. We did that every single day. I was obsessed.
Yeah.
We did it every single day. But then we got, I thought that maybe for us to go to the next level, we need to get some other equipment, right? So I was like, we scheduled the trip to New York, and then we got the laser. And what I can say is that she's been progressing, like she's been getting better, and it's continuous, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh yeah, she doesn't have any issues anymore. It's not like that. It's just
Right.
it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
You have
Time.
to do it every day. Yeah, you have to be persistent, but the results show, you know, she's different. And the amazing thing is that she understands that and she realizes that. And
And
she's
she
so
feels it.
thankful.
I mean, she's 9 and she's verbal, so she can talk to you about those things, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. She totally gets it. She's so thankful, and she understands how it's important to try to bring that to other kids and other moms. And it's that's her story. I'm just a desperate mom, a rebel who did not take. I'm so rebel. I was like, whatever you're offering me is not enough. Not for an explanation, not for a solution. This is not a solution what you're giving me, and I'm not gonna settle for this. So, and the thing is that I thought that I would have to invent the wheel, but Dr. Melillo did that. He went there and he had it all ready for us. I didn't have to come up with anything. It was
I know.
there,
It's
right?
there.
And you just have to apply. And I'm so thankful. It's just amazing how he this has changed our lives. Right?
Yeah, I know. It truly is amazing. I mean, I think back to like finding him, right, and then just going there. And again, I always say like this podcast is just for those moms to not feel alone, to feel supported, to be like, okay, there's reason to have hope, because I truly feel like when we got to Dr. M's, and Deck was only 4 at that time. Like I had only been on that journey for a year and a half by the time we arrived at Dr. M's, but he's non-speaking. So like that's a long time, even 4 years, to have not heard your child's voice, right? Like,
Yes,
and
yes.
so, and to have
I
tried,
remember this feeling. Yes.
yeah, and to have tried so many things, even within that short amount of time, felt like we had lived like 6 lives, but just to have found him. And, what you said too is what he says in his book, or whenever you hear him talk, when he talks about it, it's like, it makes sense. And when I heard him on that podcast, first I sent it to my husband, of course, but then I sent it to like my sister, a couple really, really close girlfriends that are really part of this journey, my sisters-in-law. And I was like, can you please just listen to this? And I want your honest feedback. Like, tell me, because I was, I think, 6 months pregnant, and I moved to Miami with just Declan for like 8 weeks to do this MERT treatment, which is like magnetic resonance therapy, which is basically like a paddle on the brain, like a couple, like I think 40 minutes, whatever. It was totally different, but like I did it because I was so desperate to like find answers, and hopefully help Declan. And then, so anyhow, when I sent out this podcast of Dr. M, literally every single person came back and was like, well, what he's saying makes sense. And I was like, okay, literally
Oh,
every single person said makes sense. And I was like,
that's encouraging. Yeah.
right? You're like,
Everybody said that I was crazy. That didn't make any sense.
I know. And here we are. I mean, and I do
Yeah,
feel
it's good that you have people that encourage you to go this way. That's amazing. That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah. I mean, I just think, it's isolating even when you have a great support network, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I just because no one truly gets it unless they're living it. But I'm so grateful. I mean, my sister's amazing. She's like, my support right next to Tim and my husband. And I'm so grateful, but it just still feels like there's no other connection that I've made like I've made with the Melillo moms, who were all
Yeah.
from like different countries, speak different languages. Like none of that matters because we are all there for the same reason. And I feel like we're our own breed.
Yeah. The rebel that never give up.
Right? Like we don't take no for an answer.
That's
I think like we're kind of crazy, but in a good
yeah,
way, you know?
yeah,
And it was truly, and the first mom that I met at Dr. M's, she's going to be a guest on here too. Um, we still chat a year and a half later. Like we're still connected. And she was the first one that I was like, okay, these are my people. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be because I do feel like, and I don't know if Elena is in or was in special needs classes, but I do feel like, yeah, that's where Declan is, and that's where he's supposed to be right now. And I'm okay with it. But I do feel like even those special needs parents, like, we're just different. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying they're wrong. We're just different. Like, this is
yeah.
what I can talk about and want to talk about all day long. Like it's, which is
And it's
maybe
hard
not
to find people to talk about this all day long, just here,
right.
right? I feel the same. Yes, exactly. I feel the same.
It's like,
Uh-huh.
it's almost like difficult to have regular conversation. You know, I want to be
Right.
able to have regular conversation. I want to
Yeah.
like have easygoing chatter, but like this is the stuff that like I is just like comes out, right? Like it's
Because
all
it's so
Declan.
powerful. And I think that's the message. What we're trying to say is just that hopefully other moms will get into this because once they understand how amazing this program is and how it changes everything, that's that's when you get this feeling. That's when you get like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I want to tell the world about this, right?
Right,
Because it does make a difference. It's just so special and it's so unique because it's something that everybody should be doing, but they're not, right?
right.
And it's just so special. It's just so amazing. You just want to tell the world about this over and over and over again because you know what it has done for your child. And you're just so thankful. And I think that's the important message to get out there. Like, don't settle for less. Don't listen to the experts that they say that nothing can be done for your child. There is something different out there. There is something that you can do, even though the world's gonna not gonna agree with you right away, right?
Right.
But there's something, and it's something amazing, and it's just so amazing. Whoever has gone through this and has seen the changes and understands and gets it, how amazing this is, just wants to tell the world every day, all day long, right? About this.
Exactly.
It's like, listen to me, this is so amazing, and I think just it's important. I don't know if we have time, but I just want to mention like one thing that I think it's super important, at least for dyslexic kids, that whatever we get for help is just like reading lessons. We get reading lessons and we get phonological awareness exercises and rehab to do. Nobody ever looks at the entire picture. And I think it's different about this, about what Dr. Melillo does, that he looks at the entire picture. And what I want to say is that Elena could do whatever many hours of lessons that that someone could give her. She would never learn how to read because she had all her primitive reflexes present at level 4. She had no core stability. Her vestibular system was underdeveloped. Her eyes did not work. So this girl could not track a line and she could not converge. She could not she could not focus. Like the letters would not uh, be focused on focus for her. So she would have double vision that she couldn't tell about because she didn't know any better, right? She didn't
Right.
know that words were not supposed to look like that,
Of course.
right?
Right.
Right? That's how she knew the world, right? So she could not use her eyes correctly to track a line or to focus. So they could she could do like hundreds and thousands of hours of lessons and that would not help her
Yeah.
because that uh, her eyes weren't working and her eyes weren't working because of all that that those steps that did not happen before that: primitive reflexes, core stability, vestibular system, eyes. And of course, there is an issue with the hemispheres, right?
Yeah.
But you cannot just work on the hemisphere if you have all these issues going on that precede the development of the cortex. So how in the world would this girl learn how to read or do anything or be independent because she couldn't do anything uh, with all those issues?
Right.
Just like by going to private lessons to learn how to read. That's insane. That would be torture,
Right.
absolutely torture. And
And I
now, not even a year after we started the program, she asked to go to bookstores because she wants to buy books.
That's
She loves
amazing.
to read. So, so yes, I mean it's super special, and I hope that the world gets to know about this, and other
Yeah.
professionals get to know, and other moms get to know about this.
Yeah. And I think, like, I always say to doctor, I'm like, you need the moms. Like, you need the moms to tell your story, because to tell what you do, because no one is going to have the passion like a mom. And especially the Melillo moms, like, we are there because we've been probably everywhere else. And eventually we landed on his doorstep. And I wish that, if I could go back, the two things that I would do differently, knowing what I know now, of course, but I would go immediately to Dr. M, right? And even when Deck was 3 and I was starting to, see signs or get the formal diagnosis, Dr. M would have been my first stop, and spellers or slash RPM, like any mode, because he's, a non-speaker, so it's different than Elena. But those two things I think would have not I mean, listen, we are where we're supposed to be. I'm a huge believer in that. So we got here for a certain reason. But if I could tell other moms, those would be my first two stops. And I think I would also say too, you know the Melillo method, like how I view it, is the Melillo method is the core of what we do. That doesn't mean I'm not always reading, researching, looking for other things that will complement what we're doing. Like Declan does music therapy once a week, which is why I have this piano in my house. No one plays piano except Declan. That's for Declan. But we do music therapy. I really would love to find, like, kind of like a personal trainer, but someone to really work on those core muscles with him, because I
Yeah.
think it also gets to a point with the Melillo method, which I 100% support and stand by and endorse all day long, every day. But it is a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy. That just means it doesn't leave a lot for other things. Like, right. And I have two other kids. I don't know if you have other children, but
I don't know. I
you
cannot
know,
imagine what it's like having other kids and doing this. Yes.
So, I mean, it's like, I'd love to, what I'm trying to do now is bring on people that can, like, help me, because I just can't. I do Melillo method. Like, even my husband, I do it. Like, I want control over that so that I know exactly how I'm doing it, making sure it's being done the way I know it should be done. But I just also want that to be the message. Like, it doesn't mean I ever stop researching or just become complacent, right? Like, I'm still always, like, always looking and always looking for things to add to his plate that will enhance
Same here. Yes.
his life.
Same here. Yes. And it's interesting, once you understand the concept, you can expand, not only keep doing your research and adding other professionals that make sense, but you can expand the therapy time to playtime or incorporate your other children. For example, for Elena, I know she has to do some core um, exercises, right? For core stability. So not to do that doing that every day at home is just, it's so tiring, and sometimes the kid doesn't want to do it. So what I did is, like, I put her in Pilates class. She loves it. I was like, well, she goes to Pilates class with me. We do it together, right?
I love that.
So maybe you can do like personal training for Declan, but then you can get your other kids involved in that
Right.
too.
Right.
So you can expand activities. Once you understand the concept, you can expand that to other things, right?
Yeah.
Oh, for example, Elena likes ice skating. So like, okay, let's do ice skating on Sunday, because then you're working on so many things. Like your cerebellum is like no hardcore there, like with the balancing and all that. So I know she needs to work on her cerebellum. So, we don't have to do all the boring stuff, not just the boring stuff. We can do the fun stuff too. And then it changes for every kid, whatever they can do at that time, right? But the thing is that you can expand that once you understand what's going on, you can do so much. You can bring in other people like music therapy or other things, and that's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's hard too. Like I was so caught up for a long time in Declan's challenges and like wanting to fix and being the mom that fixes, right? Like I forgot. And I think because his challenges kind of were so obvious, right? So overt, like he wasn't speaking. He does, he jumps in our trampoline in the living room, like he doesn't play with his brothers. Like those things
Right.
are hard to not or pretend like
Notice.
you don't see them and have them overtake. And so I think there was a lot of time of not remembering that he's also a little boy. And so that's just my other piece is like he's still a kid. And I'm making a very concerted effort now to make sure he does do fun stuff and that's really important. And I think when I started the Melillo method, because I was so in this fix mode, and I knew that we were on to something with the Melillo method, that like there was no grace for missing a session. Like we did not miss a session. And I think that put a lot of undue stress on me and him. And so I would also say like just being open to just every day is a new day. You just try your best. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Right now we've got a crazy time of year going on, and his therapy has had to take a little bit of a back seat. Like today, I haven't even gotten a session in. I probably won't, because my
Yes,
oldest has a
yes, but
dose.
now you can give, I guess, I mean, it's a long-term thing that we're
Yeah,
gonna do. So I guess there are different moments of that, right? When you start and you just want to give your all and you don't want to miss a session, and I think that's a good thing. You have that energy and you have that feel. You're on a mission, right? You're on a mission to do it, and you do it. And then I think comes a time that you understand that you've done a lot already, and then you've started it all, and now you can relax a little, and maybe you can miss a day to just relax because we need to relax too. That's
yeah,
okay, right? Because that's a long term thing that we're going to be doing. It's not like, okay, I'm going to do that for 2 months and that's it. No, it's not like that, right? And
exactly.
I think it's just different moments, right? The moment that you just on a mission and hyper focus and that's it. And then
Yep.
now, okay, let me breathe. This is working. Okay, I can relax a little and let's enjoy life too. But it's really hard for one person, like the mom, to reach that balance because you are the person who you are responsible to get that mission accomplished. But at
Yep.
the same time, the therapy mission accomplished, the changes, the whatever you envision for your kid. But then you're also the mom of a kid. So how do you balance like being the mom that's supposed to be trying to do fun stuff with your kid and the mission mom, right? The
Yes.
therapist, the person who's gonna fix or make
Yep.
everything work. It's different. It's difficult to reach that balance. It's not easy. So
I
um,
agree. I mean, we're a year and a half in, and I still don't feel like I'm there. I'm getting better, but I think you just feel like in the beginning, I felt like if I missed a session, I was missing progress.
yes, I
And
felt the same way. I totally understand what you're saying. I felt the
yeah,
same way. I was like obsessed. I said I'm obsessed. And I
yes,
don't know how it's like with Declan if he's okay in doing the all the exercises, if he complains about it. But
he's
Elena, she's a task avoidant girl, right? She's a right brain task avoidance. So for her, can you hear me? Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So for her, I would get like, oh, everybody says, oh, you have to make it like a fun time, but it wasn't that much fun because she didn't want to do it, but I made her do
yeah,
it anyway.
yeah,
So then, little by little, you start to like try to make it like more balanced
yeah,
for them too, right?
yeah.
Not just for us.
I will say Declan, he's like a little soldier is how we describe him. Like he's just I'll be like, okay, Jack, time for therapy. And we always try to do one in the morning and one in the afternoon. We try.
Right.
And, I'll say, okay, time for therapy. And he might like whine a little bit, but I've started to just walk in my office and say, I'll meet you in my office. And eventually, like seconds later, he just kind of saunters in. And the
Oh,
minute
wow, that's amazing.
he's great. I mean, he really is great from that perspective. He doesn't give me a hard time, rarely. Like, it's not common for him to give me a hard time. And I'll get out that Resi-Max to do his primitive reflexes. He just holds out his hand like, all right, let's do this.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so different at home. Mine is such a task avoidance. She complains about every little thing that we have to do, but we still get it done.
You
So,
still get it done. And you know what? I feel like sometimes I wish kind of that he would show more emotion, right? Like, I actually do think now we're at a point where he knows it's good for him. I really do believe that. I know that he knows it's good for him and he knows he has to do it. And so I think he does it. I feel like he's a very old soul. And I think I think he's wise. I think he knows all these things and he knows it's the key, one of the keys to unlocking him.
wow, awesome. And you're a soldier mom.
Listen, girl, we're in it together. This is the group where I feel the most connected. These Melillo moms, like we're going to the clinic. Declan and I are leaving tomorrow for the clinic for a couple days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to just be there and see everyone and just feel such a safe space when we're there, you know?
Yeah, and it's a place that you can rest. You can rest a little, right? Because you know he's being taken care of the way he's supposed to.
Exactly.
So you just can lay back and relax and let them do the job that you do every day, and you're like, oh, that's so good.
Exactly. Well, this
That's
has been
awesome.
great. I'd love to do like maybe on the next one, we'll dig into more specifics about Elena and other things you had done in the past before finding Dr. M, like get into more of the nitty gritty, because I think that is really important for other moms to hear. Okay, what did that look like?
That'll be awesome. I would love to talk about more about like the specifics and everything that is related to what Dr. Melillo explains and how we see that in the child and how we see that in the therapy, because it's just such a simple method to apply. It's a lot of work, but it's simple that
Yeah.
people don't understand how important it is and how he got to that. Why do you have to put blue lenses on or things like that? That's no so simple, but it's not so simple. And we could
Right.
talk more about that, and
I
that'd be
would
great.
love it. I would love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been really fun. I always love
Thank
talking
you
to
for
other moms.
having me.
All
It
right.
was
Thanks
awesome.
everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining. Appreciate everyone's time. Bye.